This is Dear Strategy, episode 110. Welcome to another episode of Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions about product and business strategy. Real questions from real people and real companies, just like yours. Welcome back, strategy creators, to another great episode. This is episode 110, and I'm coming to you from still the middle of this lockdown. I think we're going into week 6 of the official lockdown. Feels like a lot longer. Maybe it is a little longer because I think people started to stay home a little before that. But yeah, it's definitely not so easy. I think I've mentioned on previous episodes that I'm located here in the New York City area, actually in Connecticut, but just outside of New York City. Do a lot of work in the city. And of course, what goes on there pretty much affects me here as well. So definitely feeling this thing. Now, most of the work that I do is from home anyway, when I'm home. Of course, when I'm doing the money-making part of my job, I'm usually on the road. I'm out with customers. I'm doing training and workshops and things of that nature. So definitely haven't been able to do a whole lot of that in the last couple of months, but staying busy, still been able to transfer some of the stuff over to, virtual courses and some consulting things, and also staying pretty busy with the community. I'm part of some associations, some industry associations. One of them is called Conscious Capitalism. So I'm on the board of the New York City chapter of Conscious Capitalism, and we put on events and things like that. And of course, this is a community that's been hit pretty hard by this thing. So we're trying to do some virtual town halls and learning events and things of that nature. So definitely keeping as busy as possible. But one thing that I definitely want to do and want to try and do is try and stay positive, right? I mean, you can get yourself into a situation where you're just thinking of nothing but the negative, and there's nothing good that's going to come from that. Again, I'm not taking away from the severity of this situation. I understand it. I understand the science behind it, and I understand that there's real issues going on here. So this is not some conspiracy theory or anything like that. But I do also know that if you just always just allow yourself to get sucked into the negative news, boy, you're going to get yourself into a place where of hopelessness, right? And I don't think that's good for us. I don't think it's good for businesses. I don't think it's good for people because this negativity can be fatiguing. So, one of the things I want to do, of course, with this show is continue to focus on, just business as usual to some extent, because businesses are still running. Strategies still have to be put together. And one of the things that I have to say, just as a bit of a narrative before I get started with today's question, is I've heard a lot of people say, well, planning should go out the window now because COVID shows us that you can't plan for anything. The unexpected happens and so forth. And I could definitely understand why people would feel that way, right? I mean, best laid plans, and then something happens unexpected, and then you feel like, well, what did I plan for? Well, the reason you planned was because if bad things didn't happen, you need that plan to stay in line with your budget and your expectations and keep a good path and so forth. But, when bad things happen like this, yes, it's unexpected. It's something you couldn't account for in your long range plan. But I think it's really important to realize that the whole concept of strategic planning isn't necessarily just about 2, 3, 5 years, right? It's also things you could do in the short term. I mean, figure this: if you're going out and playing a game of some type, let's say football or hockey or, any of the sports games that we used to watch before all this happened. But, there's strategies that you're going to put together before you get on the field. And then once you get on the field, there's dynamic things that happen that you didn't expect. And you have to use those same planning processes, but in real time, right? So you have to, in real time, analyze your competitors, analyze your situation, analyze what's happening, and analyze your own capabilities. I mean, somebody could get hurt that you were relying on. Now you have to kind of reshift. Your competitors can do something that you didn't realize that they would do, and now you have to reshift. So you take all those same concepts that you do when you plan and you use it in the short term to dynamically shift your business or shift your company or shift your team or whatever you're trying to do. So yeah, planning is incredibly important, even more important than ever in times like this. So I just wanted to say that here because I've heard that way too many times. And, the danger, of course, is that people say, oh, now we're not going to plan at all. We're just going to go and randomly do stuff. That you're going to fail. As a business, you're going to fail. what you need to do is continue to put your strategy in place, continue to put your plan in place. And when things happen that are unexpected, shift your plan using the same tools that you did when you put it together in the first place. Those are the businesses that are going to come out on top. So I just wanted to call that out. But in the meantime, as we're waiting for this lockdown to kind of subside a little bit, let's get back to business as usual. And we're going to feature today another strategy question that we had in the backlog. So here it is. Dear Strategy, I come from a business that sells products. How do we develop a strategy that moves us into being a more solutions-oriented business? Okay, so this is a really interestingly worded question. I'm going to get to what I think the person meant, but I think there's a lot of benefit in analyzing what the person actually asked as well, right? So what I think the person meant is that they're selling tangible products, things you can touch and feel, physical products, and they want to move into being a more services-oriented business, not just tangible products, but also selling, services, or maybe only selling services. And this is a common shift that's happening everywhere today, where you have companies that are selling physical products and they have to move into the digital space because almost every physical product has some digital aspect to it at this point in time, even if it's on the service or support side. So there's going to be some digital aspect to it, which means you're moving from traditional physical products into more service-oriented solutions. And I think that's what the meaning behind this was. So what I would tell you, if that was the meaning, is that if you're in that kind of a transition, realize that the strategic planning process is really the same, right? And again, I won't reiterate all the steps because we do it all the time on the show, but essentially, our framework, there's 4 basic parts to it. There's your overall vision. There's your analysis, which includes analysis on your competitors, your company, your customers, right? Then there's your plan, which is the goals, the options, and the actions that you're going to take. And then there's the execution part, right? So those are kind of the 4 basic pieces. And whether you're selling a physical product or a service or anything in between, those same basic steps are going to be there, right? They don't change. So from a strategic planning standpoint, there's no difference. Now, there is going to be differences, of course, in the way that you execute your strategy or in this type of strategy that you put together. Obviously, you're going to need to consider what your customers are going to want from a service as opposed to what they would want from a physical product. There's expectations that they have. There are needs that they have that are different for services, of course, than they are for tangible physical products. So those things have to be accounted for. Also, when you're putting together your development plans, right? You're going to develop software products or service products differently than you would a physical product. Physical products, you're going to use more waterfall kind of techniques, right? Where you're putting together a whole bunch of requirements for a completed product and you take that through a gated process to make decisions on how you go forward with that and develop that out. Whereas on the software side or services side, you tend to use more of an agile process where you're releasing, 1, 2, 3 features at a time, and you're developing those in 2 to 4 week sprints, right? And that type of a thing. So different methodology for bringing software products to life or service products to life than you would use for physical products. But all of those are in the details of how you're executing the strategy and the type of strategy you're putting together. As far as the process for putting together a strategy, that's going to be the same. And I would say it's even more important than ever if you are moving from physical products to services products that you do go through that strategy process, put together that strategy so that you could look at the differences between physical and services products and account for those in your strategy. If you just kind of jump into it, then you're going to learn all these things as you go and you're going to fail pretty much, right? So the strategy process is the same, apply it, and then you're going to learn through that strategy process all the different things that you need to do based on the different customer needs and processes and methodologies and so forth. So that's the quick answer to moving from tangible products to services, software, things of that nature. But I want to also take a couple minutes to analyze the way the question was actually worded. So, and I really don't know if this is what they meant or not, but let me read it again. I come from a business that sells products. How do we develop a strategy that moves us into being a more solutions-oriented business? Now, there's really nothing in that question that talks about services, right? I'm assuming that. But there's a a wordsmithing here that I think is important, and one that is a bit of a pet peeve, if I'm being honest. I come from a business that sells products. How do we move to being more solutions? Well, let me tell you something. If your products aren't in the form of solutions, you have a problem, right? Every product should be a solution to something. That's what's going to cause people to buy your products. And so, just taking the wording, literally, I want to make sure that we call this out. You got to be really, really careful. There are many, many tangible product-based companies that have been selling their products forever and may have lost sight of the fact that that product needs to solve some problem. If it doesn't, people aren't going to buy it. Now, the problems can come in many, many different forms, right? It can come in the form of an actual physical problem that you have. I have to make a hole in this wall, so I need something that does that. Well, that would be a drill or something else, right? That solves that problem. But it also can be emotional problems, which really are more in the forms of wants or needs or desires. Things like, I want to feel better about myself. I want to look better. I want something to play with during this, COVID crisis, whatever you want to say. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of different problems that are not necessarily physical problems. They're emotional things that people desire and want, and products solve for that as well. So if you are a product company that doesn't consider your products as a solution today, you probably need to rethink that first before you ever think about, services or any of that, those other things. Be really, really careful. And I have seen this mistake made before, that people say there are products and then there are solutions, and they're implying that services are the solutions or software or something else. No, every product, whether it's a tangible product or a service or anything in between, is a solution. It needs to be a solution. If it's not a solution, it's not going to sell. And so that's just something I want to say. And again, I don't think that's what this person necessarily meant, but that is what they asked. And so I just want to clarify that and be a little careful, because again, I know that there are companies out there that kind of, even if they don't say it, they think it, right? They think it, and they're not really thinking of their product as a solution, and you need to. Really, really important. So we've covered a lot of topics here, right? We've covered a little bit of the lockdown. We've covered a little bit about tangible products versus services. And then we talked a little bit about products versus solutions, all around this, one question. So hopefully you got something out of all of that somewhere in between. If you haven't, well, go listen again and see if maybe something pops out at you. But anyway, while you're doing that and going back and taking a listen, hopefully you'll go and have a chance to go out and check out some of the other services that we offer. Of course, Dear Strategy is the official podcast of Strategy Generation Company, which is the company that I own, I founded. And through that company, we do a lot of workshops and consulting, and mostly workshops, I would say, but training and so forth in the area of strategy creation, around product strategy, business strategy, and all the types of supporting skills. In fact, throughout a lot of this lockdown, I've been really, really beefing up our curriculum. Right? We have a leadership class. We have a business creativity class that's really fantastic. We have a strategy skills class and a lot of other supporting classes as well. So go out to the website if you have a chance, strategygeneration.com. Check that out. See if there's anything there that you want to learn more about. And if there is, click on the contact list, drop me a line, and or the contact link, I should say. Drop me a line and I'll get back to you, and we'll talk about how we might have some things that can help you. And while you're doing all that, please don't forget to make time for the plan. And we'll see you back here in another episode of Dear Strategy. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for listening to Dear Strategy with Bob Caporelli. To learn more or to submit a question to be featured on our show, please visit us at dearstrategy.net.